Hey everybody, just give me 1 second while I start this up. If you join, I'm gonna be cross-connecting everything real quick. Um, 1 second. Today I'll be talking about the Raiders, obviously, so you guys can see in the presentation here. Be talking about each of their draft picks. I'll be grading each of them, and we'll go from there. Again, just give me 1 sec. See if anyone pops on. I know it's super late, so if anyone comes on, just let me know, and we can talk for a second before I start. See a few people are joining in right now, so get it going from there. Hopefully everyone's night is going well. Add a line. Actually, before I start, Add a line is going to be live tomorrow for the first time, which is a really big deal. We talk about the NFL draft. I want to do my own video. Obviously, I'm just the intern, so I won't be able to speak too much on it. So I'll have a limited role tomorrow as the camera guy and social media director, obviously. So we'll go from there. This is my holistic view. I scouted up to the 4th round, basically. I didn't know if the Raiders would be going to the 5th. I had no idea. So we'll see about that. There's a few people. Hello, everybody viewing. Appreciate it. Guys can comment. I should be able to see it, I think. I'm using this thing called StreamYard. Got to thank Jose for that. He showed me how to use it. But if everything's good, I just shared everything on social, so you guys can check that out on those pages. And then I'm sharing it on my own personal page, which is Delivering Sports and everything. So I don't know if you guys want to look at my clothes or not. Anyways, we'll get started here. If you guys have any comments, I'll have this. I have my on alert, so if I have comments, I'll hear it in my ear. Other than that, I'll be transitioning over to the PowerPoint, and we can get started, guys. I feel like I'm in school. I'm in school mode too much, talking about PowerPoint presentations, but here we go. First up, obviously, I got the Raiders Stadium here, and the reason I put this here is because they told us we were getting the 2022 NFL draft. Commissioner Roger Goodell didn't say it too perfectly, but yeah, he did announce that, so we will have to wait another year. It was unfortunate for me, obviously. I'm young in my career, so I thought I would have my first, big opportunity at the NFL draft here in Vegas this year, which would have been a 3-day event for me. It would have been really big. It would have been the biggest national event that I'd went to, even bigger than NASCAR, obviously, when I went with Brian. Disappointing, but it was cool to hear that a couple of years I'll have that opportunity again, and hopefully, maybe I'll have my own show by that time. We'll get into it now. No, I just have some highlights here. If you're listening on the video, or if you're watching the video, excuse me, you'll see.
Could you try again?
My phone. You'll see the video, but if you're listening on the podcast, it's not going to be too much about the video. Just like I did for my mock draft, it's just something.
I can't do that. You haven't installed the latest podcasts app.
Siri's just going wild. Anyways, yeah. So with the 12th pick, took Henry Ruggs out of Alabama. 2019 stats. These are all purpose because he had a few runs, which accounted for 2 of his touchdowns, I believe. So all in all, 821. I think that was almost the exact same as CeeDee Lamb. In any case, I was fairly disappointed by this pick, I have to say. I'll admit, I gave it a B-. I would have given it a much lower grade, but after doing some additional scouting, because he wasn't really on my radar before this mock draft, not necessarily, it's okay. It's nothing to truly cry about just yet. I'm willing to wait and see if their scouting made him deserving of being the 12th overall pick and the first receiver off the board. He's fast. We know that. He ran a 4.27 in the 40, the fastest player in the entire draft. So very Raider-esque, I should say. He isn't a one-trick pony. That's also like a fair point to say. It's not like he only just runs fast. He isn't another Jacoby Ford, in my opinion. He isn't another Ted Ginn Jr. Hopefully not. And a lot of his stats are twofold. He played with Jerry Jeudy, who I wish I would have picked. He also played with another kid, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's going to be a first-round pick next year as a receiver. So, and even that's twofold. On one point, you could say, okay, his stats were a little bad because of the talent around him, but then you could say, how good is he if the top corners weren't playing against him? When they played against LSU, he kind of got pushed off the line a little bit. You could tell. Now, I don't think Christian Fulton was necessarily guarding him because I don't think he can. He was one of the guys who I talked about maybe going in the first from LSU, one of the corners. So he's going to struggle against physical corners in the league. There's just no doubt about that. And, will he be playing against physical corners a lot of the time? Again, where these guys are going to fit, and we're going to talk about other receivers later in the draft, I'm just not sure at all. I didn't expect us to take 3 receivers in the draft. I think that's pretty easy to say. But here we are. At first, I thought, okay, he's just going to play opposite of Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller. That makes sense. But as you guys see later on, it gets a little more confusing. It's okay. No need to panic over this pick. Not just yet. I'll wait a couple years and see what happens. If he's the best receiver in the draft, then kudos to them. I just didn't think he was. Moving on here. Certainly the more surprising of the 2 picks. Henry Ruggs was a shock for sure, but some people could say, okay, maybe for this one, I really don't know. With the 19th pick, we took Damon Arnett, 2019 stats, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, 8 pass defenses. He's 24 years old. First of all, he's a super senior last year. He played 5 years at Ohio State, so he may be theoretically, outside of Jeffrey Okudah, the most NFL ready player, if that makes sense. Obviously he played opposite of Jeffrey Okudah, so he got a lot of action in his time at Ohio State. And I think that's maybe what attracted the Raiders the most. Another great thing about him, he has a very good tackling form. He isn't necessarily the hardest hitting guy, although he has hit a few in college, as most do. Just solid tackling, which is definitely something that you saw later in the draft with another corner, but we'll get to that when time comes. He loses his head on the swivel a lot. I mean, guys are going to get past him. His ceiling is basically hit. He's 24 years old, like I said, so as good as he is as good as he's going to be. How you ingest that, I don't know. I guess I leave that up to you. To me, it's a very average pick. Maybe necessarily if he's the guy that you want. He was never a first-round pick, in my opinion, for all these other scouting teams. I think that's pretty obvious. Some of them didn't have on their draft boards, and a big part of that is his maturity. He thought about quitting football for a little bit, from what I understand, and his teammates at the end of 2019 had a lot of good things to say about him. He had a kid too, which is definitely a very big thing. But what my baby would certainly make you rethink your choices in life. So picking up the second or third corner from Ohio State after mistakenly taking Garyon Conley is a risk that the Raiders just took on. I don't know how I feel about it. This is the one I'm least excited about of, I think, all of our draft picks in total, other than maybe one other person that will be coming up, I think, next. I hope I'm wrong about this pick. I think someone we took later in the draft is better than him, actually. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, this is when I started getting really sad watching the draft live. So at pick 80, a few guys still there, like really good third round picks, and didn't know where we were going to go. I thought, maybe one of these is going to be a receiver, and the other one, perhaps a linebacker, something like that. Wasn't really in love with any defensive backs at this point. Particularly, I thought we could have gotten Bryce Hall in round 4, which we could have. I certainly didn't think Amik Robertson was going to be there. In any case, we go for one of the more unique players in the draft, which is quarterback, running back, receiver, Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky. 2019 stats had 1,468 yards rushing, 348 yards receiving, and 14 total touchdowns. And he also had 3 passing touchdowns because he played, like I just said, he played a little bit of quarterback. I think halfway through the season they made him there. So extremely shifty guy. You can play him anywhere, quite obviously. I mean, just look at his stats. His pro comp is Randall Cobb. It's that I say, sure, maybe. I mean, I get the idea that Randall Cobb was also kind of an everywhere, can do it all, punt returns, kick returns, quarterback, receiver thing. But Randall Cobb was a much more polished route runner. I mean, they're going to have to design plays for him. He's not going to be able to just line up and be a receiver, which is one thing I really didn't like about this pick. Now, if there's anyone who can create creative plays for a guy like this who's good in open space, I have faith in John Gruden. You'll see after I'm done talking about each of these picks, I'll have a what if draft where I'll take the place and redraft it in their position. This pick's fine. It's a C- for me. You do have if this was our only third round pick and we didn't have 2 other ones, I would be super upset about it because it would be terrible. But the fact that there's 2 other picks in this round, then I think it gave us a little leeway, or gave Mayock a little leeway, and I think he took it that leeway certainly. So he's just gonna be a package guy, and I mean that's honestly makes sense for a third round pick. I just thought there was at least one other defensive guy we should have taken. Now, as for the next pick, a huge fan. This is you're talking about someone who plays opposite of Henry Ruggs. This is the guy, Brian Edwards. 2019 stats aren't too crazy. 838 yards, 6 touchdowns, 11.5 yards per reception. I did play for South Carolina, so that you definitely have to keep that in mind. So not playing with the best quarterback, of course. They use this guy like nuts, man, over there. They gave him the ball for him to just go with it. Extremely physical, someone who can play on the outside, get the one-on-one balls. The idea, I don't know if he is, the idea is for him to replace Tyrell Williams, and I think he's certainly going to get a lot of reps this year. Someone who you just want to have the ball in their hands to create space. I mean, you guys can, if you're looking at the highlights here, you can see that how much they used him on end arounds and deep routes and just that slot position. So it looks like 89's coming back to Las Vegas, or the Raiders, I should say, since this is the first season. And it should be an exciting return. Pretty happy, much happier about this pick than I was Lynn Bowden, but I do understand what they're thinking about doing. For my first pick in the draft, who I wanted the Raiders to pick, actually did a lot of scouting on this kid from Clemson, and obviously I knew the Raiders would be interested. The half of our team is turning out to be from Clemson. Had pick 100 in the 3rd round, took linebackers, gave him an A for it. 2019 stats, he had 3 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 1.5 sacks. Just someone who is he's not similar to Isaiah Simmons. I mean, that sounds a little too much, obviously, but someone who played a similar role of that linebacker / safety, which is just a really rare breed. And he certainly does not have the ball ability to play deep safety. People say he was slow. That was another knock on him. Although he ran a 4.47, I believe, in the 40, so definitely proved a lot of people wrong. You could tell he put a lot of work in for the draft. I was so happy that he fell later in the 3rd. I thought the Raiders should have thought about taking him with the 80 or 81st. They got lucky, to be honest. Now, what I envision him, do I envision him playing safety for the Raiders? No, I do not. Or at least very few snaps do I see him playing that. He's going to play that outside linebacker position, which I think could end up being perfect for the Raiders. He's going to play opposite of Littleton and Kiwatowski. I hope I said his name wrong. Two actual starting caliber linebackers that the Raiders haven't had since I was born. And, this guy plays with a lot of swag. He plays very aggressively. His tackling's got to get a little better. And like I said, he has troubles in coverage, but, he was guarding receivers and stuff. So if he's playing the linebacker position, he's primarily going to be guarding tight ends, which I think, again, is perfect for him to play linebacker position. And, I scouted him as a safety, so I didn't have him that high. But as I learned more and more that he can be that hybrid position, this pick just seems so much better. Because I hate Nicholas Morrow. I think he stinks. And I'm so glad we got rid of Tahir Whitehead. He also is a terrible football player. So this if he's as good as I think he could be, I think this is going to be a great pick. One of certainly my favorite of the draft, I think, other than one other. Amongst my favorite, I should say. I don't have much to say about this round 4 pick 109 guard John Simpson, also from Clemson. I gave him an A. They traded up for him. I'm happy whenever GMs get their guys. And again, I didn't know much about him. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I scouted, offensive linemen going in the 4th round. I was looking more at skill position at this point and big name defensive guys. He seems mobile. He can fit into this nice power scheme. As you guys can see, the way he pulls and stuff, it seems like he handles it very well. And interestingly enough, this guy is gonna replace Gabe Jackson. I mean, I think that was the idea. Certainly, if you trade up for someone like him. Now, when asked about it on the phone, Mayock said Gabe Jackson's our starting right guard. Also saying that John Simpson can play either of the 3 inside position, left guard, center, or right guard. Honestly, it was very surprising, even though Adam Schefter reported, I think, this morning that the Raiders are not asking for a very high price on Gabe Jackson. I don't really know what that means. Personally, I think they're trying to trade him so they have space to sign Logan Ryan, the cornerback from Tennessee, who has not signed yet, surprisingly. So we'll have to see about that. Sure, maybe he can be the starting guard. I mean, they seem to like him a lot. Again, I don't know much about him, but the fact that Mayock and Gruden were on the same page here and were able to get this done, someone who they wanted all along, I'm personally perfectly fine with that, and I'll commend them even just for the idea. Wow. Yeah. So the last pick here, 4th round, 139th pick. They selected cornerback Amik Robertson. 2019 stats: 1 forced fumble, 5 interceptions, and 8 tackles for a loss. This is an A for me. The fact that I was going to go for Bryce Hall, or that's why I wanted them to take going in the 4th round, just because I didn't think there was any way that Amik Robertson was going to be there at that spot at 139. The guy is tenacious. He is a fantastic hard-hitting tackler off the edge. Now, the problem with him is that he's 5'8". I'm taller than Amik Robinson, or at least as tall. And that could be a big problem in the league, but he makes up for technique in what he lacks in other places. There really isn't much to say about how his deficiencies in coverage. It's literally just how small he is. I'm really excited about him. I think he's going to be better than our 1st round pick. All in all, I think he'll start over him. I think he'll start opposite of Trayvon Mullen come week 1. Just going to stare. I think Amik Robinson is one of the best coverage guys in the draft, and certainly who I saw someone who could be taken in the 2nd or 3rd round. This was our best pick of the draft by far. I think that goes without say. He's someone who plays with swag, with heart, and could be, basically our next Max Crosby and coming from the 4th round as well. Now, if I had the chance to retake the draft, who would I have taken? This is based on who was available at the time, and I know things shake up once that happens, but at any given time, if I had in charge of just that one pick, who would I have taken? Round 1, pick 12, definitely would have taken Jerry Jeudy. I think he's the best all around. I can maybe understand taking Henry Ruggs over CeeDee Lamb. Something seemed off about CeeDee Lamb, and I don't think we'll ever know. At the end of the day, he fell much harder. Definitely the best yard after the catch guy in the draft. Looked like he was poised to be a top 10 pick, and maybe he just didn't interview well. That's my only guess. I'm not exactly sure. But again, I would have taken Jerry Jeudy, who played opposite of Henry Ruggs, certainly got more attention and performed up to his name. He has the biggest route tree, the most refined route tree, and I don't know. Again, that like I mentioned earlier, I hope I'm wrong about that. But he ended up going to the Broncos, so I think he's going to kill us twice a year for the next 10 years and just make me sad. Now, at pick 19 in the first round, I would have gone after Xavier McKinney. I know he dropped to the second round to the Giants. I think that was a mistake by a lot of NFL GMs. Definitely the best tier 1, tier S, whatever you want to call it, safety of this draft. Shouldn't have fallen to the second round. He's a little small and everything, but a guy who has a nose for the football, is excellent in the zone, and I know we need we have a need at cornerback, but we have a need in the secondary period. I don't want to depend all on Jonathan Abrams in this year, only in his second year. Jonathan Abrams isn't necessarily even the best coverage guy, which I think Xavier McKinney could have helped him play deep safety, and Jonathan Abrams could have been, more of a guy who can go inside. And I didn't want to reach in the first round either. I certainly do not feel like Xavier McKinney here is a reach at all. Now in the third round, again, I had mentioned this before, so I would have liked for them to take a defensive guy here to kind of fill in that role of that third linebacker that we need. And Malik Harrison from Ohio State, I think, could have been that. Has a lot of troubles technique-wise, but certainly one of the best coverage linebackers in the draft. Someone who I think could have developed and been great and to really help out our secondary when we're playing zone, because in my version of this draft, we don't have a lot of corners here. And then right after, I would have taken Bryan Edwards still, because I think, again, he's a great receiver that shouldn't have fallen to the third round anyways. Pick 100, I would have kept it the same, Tanner Muse. And I know, do we really need 2 linebackers in the third round? Yes, I think we do, quite desperately. I think our linebacking core just in general is bad, and certainly that's one of the most heavy positions to play at, being that you need to stop the run constantly, drop back in coverage. They have one of the most important jobs on the defense. So having multiple of those guys who I like, I think would have been really good. And again, I didn't think we really needed 3 wide receivers in one draft. I would have kept it the same. I mean, they traded up for 109, so it's hard for me to say that they should have taken someone else to their guy. And I would have kept Amik Robertson the same as well. And, keep in mind that Logan Ryan is still out there. So Amik Robinson, Logan Ryan, Trayvon Mullen, Isaiah Johnson, and I guess Darryl Worley, if they were really desperate for another corner, could have been re-signed, because as of right now, he isn't on another team. Curious, I'll probably take a screenshot of this guy and see what you guys think about my redraft, and we'll go from there. Final thoughts. I was much happier with the draft last year. But at the same time, Mayock and Gruden clearly have their own draft boards, and they don't care what we think. And they're going to stick to that. They're not going off the best available. They're going off of the list of players who they want. And I don't think there was a single player in this draft that they didn't want that they didn't get, if that makes sense. I think they were happy to reach at every single one of their picks outside of Tanner Muse and Amik Robinson. Other than that, all of their picks were technically a reach. Or maybe Bryan Edwards too. I'll give him that. Overall, I'll give him probably a B for the draft, and hope, it just seems like a trend. Last year, their later round picks were better than their first round picks, besides Josh Jacobs, maybe. Do I think everyone in this draft is going to be on the roster next year? No. I also don't think that as well. Certainly one of the receivers, Lynn Bowden in particular, I think will be dropped by the next season. Didn't have any 5th to 7th round picks, which I think was a good thing, because we had the most signed players anyways. We only had room for 3 unsigned free agents, or undrafted free agents, excuse me. And we used one of them on a UNLV player for PR purposes, of course, which I guess I can't fault them on. Sure, why not? Ruben to Vegas, take a UNLV player who was never getting taken anyways. And, we have a full roster now. We're going to have to drop someone. I'm sure we're still looking to trade Gabe Jackson, even though Mayock may not say that, to sign Logan Ryan to really shore up that cornerbacking core, which I think would be, if we got him, I think would be fantastic for him to be the corner one. Then you have the backup Trayvon Mullen and Amik Robertson, and I guess Damon technically now. I think that's decent enough to help us, and I think we got, better enough at the linebacker position, certainly through the draft, to where you're not going to be the worst defense in the league. I expect them to be ranked 20th, which for Raiders' sake is pretty good. Offensively, I expect them to be ranked, maybe 15th. I think we have a pretty good scheme. Sometimes we get too silly with plays, but I think that tends to happen with most teams. At this point, Derek Carr's got to be pretty happy, even though we signed Marcus Mariota to one of the biggest backup contracts in the past decade. He'll have his chance. He's going to be the starter day one, unless something like just horrific happens in the preseason and he throws like 16 picks, which I don't expect to because he'll check the ball down. I don't expect anything in the preseason either, if that's even going to happen, which I don't know this year because of this virus. But let me know what you guys think. And remember to watch the show. I'll have it up on every podcasting platform available if you can't listen live. And the show will also be streaming live. So there's like a million different ways to get in contact us and let us know what you guys think about the draft. Because I know it's kind of hard to call in. The show is very busy. We only have an hour, so we don't always have time to take calls. But the comment section is a great way to do this. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.